So I'm going to talk today about managed service providers and some of the risks that managed service provider can present for their client if they're not careful themselves. My name is Damian Profancik. I'm a security consultant and researcher with Apparatus. My contact info is there. I'm on Twitter. I don't tweet about like what I had for lunch, so if you're interested in security, I usually tweet about what I find interesting in security. So, Apparatus is a managed service provider, so disclaimer, from Indianapolis. Does anyone here know what a managed service provider is or work for a managed service provider? I should see one, at least one. So a managed service provider is basically an outsourced IT company. They usually provide some sort of proactive or reactive services, and they can be anywhere from, managing, can you hear me okay? Managing even just a small slice of the company's infrastructure, or they can be the entire IT department. The support is typically performed remotely, and in order to do that, they usually use some sort of tool or platform to provide this type of service. The way that tool works is usually there's a server and then some sort of agent that gets dropped on the machines to manage them. And then by their very nature of the services company, they're managing multiple clients and they have a lot of purview over multiple machines. So, why is it so important to make sure that us as managed service providers aren't vulnerable? Well, because, as RSA taught us a while back, a couple of years ago, when that breach happened, we started to see things like the Lockheed Martin breach and things like that. A lot of people speculate that that's why, is that maybe they couldn't attack Lockheed Martin directly, so they thought, well, we'll attack RSA and then we'll use that to get in. So it's important not to become that weakest link that an attacker will attack us as a managed service provider to get into one of our clients. So we're going to look at a couple areas of risk or things that I think that ought to be fortified and have a lot more due diligence around. So we're going to look at social engineering, ticketing systems, password management, insider threat, as well as the service delivery platform that I mentioned at the beginning. From a social engineering aspect, some of it's pretty obvious, right? They're going to have a help desk. They're providing some sort of service to a client. It's an obvious attack method would be email in, say, hey, I need a new domain admin account. I'm the administrator of company such and such, and I need you to create a new domain admin account. We've got a new employee in our IT department. If you're a small company and you maybe only have a small client set, it's kind of obvious to see those kind of attacks. But as you grow as an organization and as your client base grows, it's not going to be easy to spot that. Or if someone calls in, you may not recognize their voice. So looking at methods that you can combat some of that thing would be, enumerating. Blacklists in security are never a good idea, but I think that in this case, at least enumerating what you would consider to be sensitive operations like password resets, account adds, DNS changes, server changes. Those might be a good idea to enumerate those and then have some sort of authorization mechanism from the company. So somebody maybe at the company that is a representative that can approve such changes. And then also some way of authenticating that the request came from the actual person that you intended it to come from. Example of that would be if they emailed in their request, maybe you call them on a second factor channel, call them on the phone, hey, did you send in this request? Okay. If you have the means to do it, it can be difficult as a managed service provider, depending on your infrastructure. But if you have secret questions or something like that you can authenticate them with, that would be a good idea to do as well. And then internally, having security training for your employees is a good idea. There are some pretty bad awareness training out there, but I think it has its place. But I always believe that security awareness training has to be followed up by security testing. So you have to test that your awareness program is actually working. And I think a great way to do that is, phishing employees do the same things an attacker would do. So pen test your own company. But then a good way would be to also incentivize your employees. So if they spot one of your phishing attempts, then you can reward them or something. And then overall, just a culture of situational awareness. We don't want to have a culture of fear or anything like that, but having a general overall situational awareness, knowing that, hey, what we're working with is sensitive. I know when you get into the day in, day out of things, you may not, you kind of get in a rut, and you just kind of work like an automaton. So having an awareness of what's around you and what you're doing it always is great. So ticketing systems, these are interesting because they hold a lot of data that if someone got that data could really present a risk to the company. You should never be storing credentials in a ticketing system, but I think I've not seen any place that doesn't. Whether the admins slip it in or whether the users put it in, oh yeah, this is my password login when I'm not here. It happens. But there's a ton of other, by its very nature of a ticketing system, there's a ton of other sensitive information in there, network configurations, and then just general information like, oh, I'm going to be at lunch from this time to this time, or I'm going to be on vacation this week. So social engineering data that either can be used to, again, phish the service provider or to socially engineer the client directly. So it sounds really generic, right? Protect your ticketing system. It's not very specific, but in security, there's often concepts of that there's all these things that we're supposed to protect, but you can't. I would say you can't protect all things with all value, or you probably shouldn't. But there are certain things that you should protect, more diligently than others, and I would say that this would be one of those things. So, monitoring and auditing, that sort of thing. And then don't store credentials and tickets if you can. It might even be a good idea to have some sort of automated process to go through and look for keywords like password and things like that. So also a sensitive area would be that we as managed service providers, we've got to be able to get into systems and administer them. So we've got to store the passwords for all of these things. There's lots of ways to do this, and I've seen everything from people putting them in text files all the way to really good systems with encryption and auditing and everything. But other than just encryption and access control, there's a whole lot of other things around auditing and being able to know who has access to it, and then how is it accessed? Is it external? Is it only internal? And then is there a separation of duty? So one administrator shouldn't necessarily have access to everybody's credentials, right? So maybe you have different departments in your organization. They should only have credentials to the accounts that they manage. And then you need a way to revoke access when that employee leaves. And so in order to do that, you have to have some way of logging what they had access to. And then have a change management control around that, not only auditing what's in the password database of what they access, but then once they leave, identifying what do they have access to and what do I need to go change at my client. The other obvious area is, again, because we have, I'll pull out the whole Spider-Man adage, with great power comes great responsibility. We have a lot of power and influence over a multitude of different companies. So again, there are some ways that you can protect that with current employees and with ex-employees, and that's having separation of duties. Again, not one person should have access to everything, and then auditing and logging. From ex-employees, obviously you want to reset their password, disable accounts, but as I said before, with the password database, auditing what they had access to and revoking that access is important, as well as being able to identify maybe that in the last 90 days they accessed these customer records or these passwords, and we need to go change those at the client. So the last thing I want to talk about is the service delivery platform. So this is the actual tool that a lot of these managed service providers use to gain access to their clients. There are several key platforms out there. Some of them are listed up here. So there's LabTech, Level Platforms, Kaseya, Enable. These are some of the big major players in that space. And these tools can be used for all kinds of things. Notably, you can inventory your machines, you can use it for remote control, monitoring, you can write scripts and have them execute automatically, backups, antivirus, all kinds of things that really make life easy as a managed service provider, but again, can provide some area of risk if it's not taken care of properly. So just doing a quick Google search, doing a little Google hacking, you can find out the exposure on the internet of some of these platforms. LabTech, it's coming out, I don't know if you can see those numbers really well. LabTech's about 8,000 out on the internet installs. So if you think about that in the level of impact or exposure, let's say each one of those installs even has 100 clients behind it, or even 100 machines. You attack that, you have pretty broad access to a lot of machines. Followed by Enable with about just under 3,000, and Kaseya level platforms, around 600. Continuum, and I think I saw their booth upstairs. Continuum is only software as a service platform, and that's the other thing about a lot of these products. They also have a software as a service flavor, but that's why Continuum has a 1 up here, just because they only have just their current client base there. So there's a lot more even behind it than just what's, these are just probably local installs of different managed service providers. And then on another note, in addition to providing software as a service, a lot of these platforms use this internally as their own ticketing system or their own help desk or knowledge base. So they have their own direct exposure if it's not taken care of. So, given that level of access, what I decided to do was look into these platforms since they do have such a high exposure risk, and just see what I could find, doing a little reverse engineering and checking. And I found some pretty bad stuff. Nothing new to you guys, but found some upload bugs, SQL injection, cross-site scripting, cross-site request forgery, so on and so forth. I am working with the clients or the platforms that I found these things in, so I'm going to do some demos here in a minute, but I'm not dropping any 0-day here or anything like that. These have been patched, and I'm also under NDA, so I cannot, so it's my legal disclosure there. I can't expose exactly what flaws that I'm attacking or even what platform I'm attacking. So again, just to reiterate the impact here is that all I got to do is attack that one, and I have all kinds of machines behind it. Again, software as a service platform, so there's a lot of machines behind them. And then another thing that I found is a lot of these agents are running a system. So if you can take control of that agent, you really have a system on the machine. All right, so let's look at some of the things that I found. So the first one we're looking at is an upload bug. First thing we're going to look at is just a simple ASP command shell. And, oops, I already uploaded it. But normally I would get 404 there. So let's just go ahead and execute the script anyways. So I wrote a couple just proof of concept exploits for the vendors. So again, I just uploaded it. I don't need to refresh since it's already there. I'm not running on the machine. And I'm running as the system account, basically. So that's the machine account. So the next one I'll look at is a SQL injection bug that I found. And just to verify, I do not have this account. This is what happens when you actually practice your demos ahead of time, right? So that count is not supposed to exist already, but tell you what, get rid of it. Love live demos. Gone. All right. So let's go ahead and log in as the valid user. Typing failure. Okay, and so we only have one account here. Okay, so now I have another account. One thing that I found that was awesome about this bug was that I wasn't actually injecting all the tables correctly, which was great because it allowed me to log in as a master user, which is like the God account under this platform. But if, added bonus, if the administrator found this account and said, oh man, I don't want a test account in here, well, you can go delete it. Or can he? Or maybe he can try to disable it. No. Okay, well maybe you can at least reset my password so I can't get in anymore. No soup for me. So I thought, well, I can be a lot more creative than that, right? So was anyone here at DEF CON 20? No? Okay, so Dave Kennedy gave a really awesome talk on attacking SCCM. I don't know if anyone's seen that video. But basically his concept, and it's in set now, but his concept was attack the SCCM server, and then you basically own all the machines in the network. So I thought, well, okay. Again, going back to the concept of there's a lot of machines behind this spread across multiple companies, so what if I can take control of all of them simultaneously? So let's do that. I call that checkmate. So what this command is basically doing is saying that I'm going to attack that target, I'm going to upload that file, and that's what I want everybody to execute, and I'm going to set up an automatic listener on, of course, port elite. So the shell that I'm uploading is, again, also from Dave Kennedy's talk. It's basically it's just a Python script that is compiled to a binary. It evades all AV. So this takes just a minute here. Should have some Jeopardy wave music right now. So it takes a minute because all of the machines then are checking back into the machine and saying, okay, do you have any jobs for me to run? Pull that down. Should start to come in here. It usually takes about a minute. There we go, there's one. So the low IPs are the servers in my environment. Actually what I did was I contacted Dave after his talk and said, hey man, did you, because he owned like 1,000 machines on stage. I said, did you set up a VM lab or something for that? And he's like, no, I VPN'd into a real company. I was like, well, I can't really do that. So I actually set up a VMware lab at our office. So this has 150 machines behind it. So they should start to trickle in here. Again, the servers are more responsive than my 150 XP machines on one VM host.
And the 4.5 isn't the thing running the age service?
Yeah. So it reports back in because it's running the agent itself. Yeah, 4.4 is my DC and 4.8 is my vCenter server. And if you notice the username, so I'm system, and here they come. Rock on. So this is just a diagram of what was actually happening. So exploring the server, it's pushing the payload out to all of its agents, which can be spread across multiple companies. And then all those agents are then connecting back into me. So, what can we do about this? As I said, we really, as a managed service provider, got to up our game. We don't want to be the avenue of attack for our client. We just need to have a general situational awareness about us to make sure that, we're aware of our surroundings and we're aware of, are we becoming a target? And then managing our employees appropriately, monitoring what they're doing, controlling access, and choosing your tools wisely. That can be difficult to do, but you know, is some level of due diligence that can be done to make sure that that's happening. Any questions?
Can't do that in your Python code, can
No.
What's the question?
Yeah.
What was the question?
Oh, I'm sorry. He wanted to know if he can have a copy of my Python
No, not
code.
copy, I just want to see what
No, so there's SQL queries and things in there that I can't disclose. So, sorry.
When you have 150 machines connected back to you, did you see any bandwidth uptick, or does it make a difference?
No, I mean, not really. I mean, yeah, you would see a spike if you were monitoring that. You know, maybe are you saying as the end? I'm sorry. The question was, I have 150 machines connecting back to me. Is there a bandwidth impact on that?
I'm just thinking that would tip off.
Yeah, if your client maybe were monitoring. So my shell.exe was 3 megs. You could obviously probably get it smaller. I didn't pack it or anything like that. So, but it's only 13 megs or 13 lines of Python code. It's not much. So if they were monitoring that, that might tip them off. But you can, in my attack, I'm saying execute this command right now, all the machines. I could stagger that. I could say, because there's a timestamp of when you want it to execute the script. So you could, you know, just do a loop or something like that.
Yeah, I was curious about the SQL injection flaw. Was interesting by itself, but it seems like they almost had, in some sense, I don't know, could call it worse or better, in that they weren't failing secure on those disable, delete, change password functions.
Yeah.
Did you have that discussion with them as well, and how'd that go? Because it seems to me like, oh, I can't, this account doesn't seem totally right when I try to delete it. Well, shouldn't you try to delete it anyway, right?
Yeah, and so to delete it, and I actually had to write, again, an accompanying Python script to remove that account. That you saw me had to remove that. Because you actually have to open up like SQL Management Studio and go to the tables and know which tables to delete it from. And basically that's why it failed, is because what their code is doing is going and doing lookups on tables to verify that that account even exists. And since I wasn't injecting into the tables that they check, the links were broken, basically. The other side effect too that's awesome about the checkmate attack was that I actually also had to write an accompanying Python script to end the attack, because they keep coming back to me over and over. So if I lose my connection, they'll connect back to me within the next 10 minutes or so. I actually left it running one night and woke up in the morning and checked it, and I was like, had 7,000 connections over the time. So again, here's my contact info. I'm on Twitter, my email address. So thank you, everybody. Appreciate it.